All right, we are now reconvening open session. We will not consider any action on any closed session items this evening, so we're going to go right into our board governance. 8A1A, our review the minutes from previous meetings, December 10th, 2018 and December 17th, 2018.
Mr. Burdine, I would point out that board members did note a few errors in the minutes, nothing major, but some things we're cleaning up. So we'll have updated final versions in the board book for approval next week.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Any other comments? Next, we will review the proposed annual audit engagement letter with the Whitley Penn LLP for fiscal year 2018-19.
And this is to engage them to continue our auditing services for our internal audit committee, just for clarification.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Do we have any comments about that? Hearing none, moving on. Now we have 8B1, review the proposed staffing positions within the teaching and learning. All right. 8B2, review the proposed purchases exceeding $50,000, specifically for the broadcast system. Moving on, 8B2B, our online course content provider, Edgenuity. All right. 8B2C, our blended learning professional development. Questions or comments? 8B2D, academic tutorials and enrichment services. Moving on, 8B2E, special education services and related items. All right. 8B2F, supplementary special education skilled nursing services. Okay. 8B2G, Apple Computer Incorporated. Mrs. James.
I have a question on this one, and it relates to the next one as well. So in this item, it talks about, this is purchasing Apple products and then PC products, and as part of our classroom set. I think that, is that correct, Mr. Pham?
Classroom set as well as the lending set.
The classroom set.
So what we do is we have, if you remember, we have a certain amount of cards for the classroom to check out to complete the one-on-one. So those as well. Okay.
So do we have this is a large purchase, so do we have a timeline for the purchase and for the rollout or implementation in all of our campuses and facilities?
We are working with teaching and learning as well as our PMO to work out the details of the timeline. Once we have it, we will present it to the board.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Mrs. Tossan.
I just had a quick question. Are we ensuring that the computers and Apple products that we're procuring are compatible in our classrooms? And the reason I'm asking this question is because through personal experience with my kids, we've had some issues with the computers, the Apple computers specifically, that they've received that are fairly new, not being functional in the classroom. And I don't know if it didn't speak to the Wi-Fi, or we couldn't get into Schoology, or exactly what the issues are, but I just want to make sure that what we're getting is.
So we have been piloting these types of computers for the older classes, as well as iPads for the the younger classes. So everything is, what we have is standard image, which is once that works, we know that works with the network that we have put in.
So we're testing,
That's correct.
so to speak. So if something we purchase doesn't work, are we able to return that or exchange it and get something that does?
Well, we're going to try to work with the vendor and the manufacturer first to make sure that we understand why it doesn't work. The problem that we've been having was when we still have the guest wireless, and a lot of the wireless was defaulted to guest because that's happened to be the least resistant in terms of restriction, if you will. And so when you get onto guests, that's when they start looking, feeling like they couldn't be connected. Reason why is that the bandwidth is very low. It's
Right.
intended to be low. But ever since then, we have gotten rid of the guest wireless, so we have the BYOD or the Fort Bend ISD wireless. So once they connect it to that, they have a wider bandwidth than need.
Okay, good. Well, I just want to make sure that if for whatever reason, something that we purchase isn't compatible or doesn't work for whatever reason, that we have an agreement with the vendor that we can exchange that out or that we'll work with. I know that may be something that we have to ask or negotiate into the contract, but I think that, I think that that's at least worth pursuing.
Yes, ma'am, we will
Okay.
make sure we look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Mr. Rosenthal.
So the vision, I just want to make sure I kind of remember what we've discussed in the past. So is to have two either iPads or these Apple computers, whatever, in the classroom for each student.
No, it's the other way around. It's two students.
I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's late. I'm really because you can then. I'm really
I would
tired.
love to have two computers for every
You know what I
student.
meant. Thank you for realizing what I meant. So, okay, so
That is, that's
that
our
is the-
intention,
Right,
yes.
okay, so one computer per two students.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but the students, if students want to bring their own device, they can still do that?
Yes, sir. That's why we set up the Fort Bend ISD BYOD.
Okay.
And
so-
they have to register just like you would have at a hotel.
Okay,
So that way we know exactly who's on our network.
right, okay. And so, all right, that's fine. And these things will be stored in the classroom,
Yes, sir.
right, and plugged in to recharge if
Yes,
they
sir.
want in between classes and whatnot?
That's really, we're going to have to educate the teachers to make
Right.
sure that they are regularly stored.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Mrs. Tossan.
Thanks. I just had one more quick question. And if they bring their own device, we can regulate what sites they
Yes,
go
ma'am.
to? Okay.
That's the
Just
reason
wanted
why
to
we have the
confirm.
BYOD and
Right.
force them on going that way.
Okay.
The other thing is that we eventually, once we have it matured enough to where we will have a set of recommended devices that they should be purchasing, so that way it'll be compatible with our network.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. 8B2H, I know we kind of blended those two together, but I don't know if there's any more questions on that. 8B2I, the virtual online staffing services, proximity learning services. Mrs. James.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. So I have a couple of questions about this. First of all, I really liked this idea, and I really, the concept of trying something this innovative is really exciting to me. So I just want to ask a couple of questions to understand how we're going to use it, and then see and kind of have a better understanding of that. So I guess my first thing is, from what I understand, it's going to be used at the middle school and high school levels. Is that correct?
Yes, we're going to go ahead and start at the high school level.
Okay, so we're not thinking about doing this at the elementary level?
At this point in time, no. We would like to pilot at the secondary level, of course, at the high school level first, and then see how that works out for us.
Okay, and so how, can you give an example of how we might use these virtual teachers?
Okay, so
And are they like robots, or are they
no,
people?
no. No, okay, so I'll use American Sign Language as the example.
Okay,
If we have Hightower High School, that's having an issue hiring an instructor for American Sign Language. If we work with Proximity, they have someone that is certified that can teach American Sign Language. Now, we have the option of having them projected to a classroom of students, or students can bring their own device. We have devices for them to provide. They can connect with the teacher as well, and they could put on some headphones, and they could receive instruction in that manner. But the key is that we would need to have a body in there. So what they are recommending is that we have a paraprofessional that's available, a strong para that's able to obviously to control the classroom and to also assist the instructor with any issues. So that's the way it would work. You literally have a live teacher on the other side that's providing instruction. And I'm using American Sign Language because at times that's one of the courses that we struggle hiring somebody that is fully certified to teach our students.
Okay. All right, well, that sounds really good. One of my concerns about it was that, you know, what we've said as a board, how important relationships are in the teaching and learning process and building a trusting relationship and kids, you know, taking risks in their classroom and that type of thing. So I was wanting to be sure we had a way for those relationships to be built. And, you know, it sounds like you're thinking about that in terms of having a strong paraprofessional in the room, or, and that, is that?
Yes. Assistant Superintendent Carmela Levy-Davis, she spoke to the Assistant Superintendent for HR in Ector County, which is Odessa. And that's what they recommended. They said that the teacher, by far, the teachers that they've utilized, that they are truly engaging, right? They're engaging with the students, but that the biggest component is who you put in there as far as the body. That person needs to be truly able to build relationships with students. They need to be able to manage the classroom. And so that is what they say is key at this point in time.
All right, well, I think it sounds exciting, and I think it's very, innovative, and I like the idea, and I'll be interested to see how it works out and what kind of feedback we get. I guess another concern that I had was explaining to parents how, you know, about their child's class not having a certified teacher in the room. So I'm sure you guys have worked on your communication plan about how that would go.
Yes, and a part of the plan would also include mentioning that the virtual teacher is also going to be able to meet in PLCs, virtually, obviously, right, with the team. They're also going to be able to plan and create assessments with the team. So they're not going to be working in isolation. They are certified. They are through Proximity, but they're also going to be a part of the planning process with the teachers or any other department that's currently at the campus.
Okay, so that brings up a good question, because I was wondering how this would fit into, say, our EG local policy and our curriculum that we've developed, and if that person is not from here, they're, you know, from wherever, and they're coming into our system. So how does that work, and how do we, I guess, how does it work?
Yeah. So they're going to have access to Schoology. They're going to have access to all the resources that we have for our teachers. Yeah, so they're going to have the same access. Really, all Proximity is doing is they are providing a certified teacher for our students. And I'm going to go back to Ector County. They struggle, obviously, in that part of the state. They're having a struggle hiring teachers. So they have hundreds of vacancies. So at this point in time, what they're saying is that obviously that's not their preference, is to go virtual, but it's something that they feel is important, is having a certified teacher in the classroom, especially when you come into some of the classes that are needed for high school students to graduate. You know, for them that's important. Obviously, it's going to be important for us as well.
Right. I thought you were going to say especially chemistry, because you want to have a certified chemistry teacher.
Well, yes, that is important.
Okay, so but what you're saying, in all seriousness, what you're saying is these virtual teachers would be responsible for the curriculum and for our following through on our policies and all of that in the same way that a regular employee would be.
Yes, and we also have the option, if we do encounter an issue with a teacher, we have the option of contacting Proximity and switching out teachers. Okay. So, I mean, we can go through the full interview process as well. I mean, They're literally just providing a service, but we still are able to hold them to policies as well.
Awesome, thank you
All right.
very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes, thank you. Some of those were my questions as well. We've established that kids can't build relationships with robots, so that's good. So, one of the questions is, do you envision, because I'm just trying to picture this in a classroom, okay, like Ms. James, and do you picture this where kids are just able to see the teacher, or is it, can the teacher, interact with the kids and actually see kids in the room, or, because I'm just, I guess that's where you'd have to have, that para or whatever to, if there was, a discussion and, you wanted to ask a question, somebody would have to monitor that, or can the teacher actually, I can't see how that kind of, I don't know, I'm asking you, is it more of a one-way where the students just get to see, that teacher online, or is it kind of like you have cameras set up where the teacher can actually see into the classroom? And
Yes, there is going to be opportunity for that kind of interaction. So, I mean, we could do whole group, and there is an opportunity for individualized learning as well, per student. But that's one of the things that Ector County ISD stated is, they began by having the projector, all students facing the board as if it was real life, somebody standing up front. But what they found is that students their preferred method of receiving instruction was for themselves to have their own, either their phones or laptops, so that's their preferred method over there, so.
Okay. And then, and I'm glad to hear that online teacher would get involved in planning and whatnot, and data.
Yes, sir.
And so the other thing is, have you all figured out what the cost would be versus an FTE?
Yes, so if we were to go for the entire year, it's going to be the cost of, we'll say $65,000, 60 to 65. But where the cost really comes in is that we have to hire an additional person to be in the classroom. So that's the cost that we encounter. Now, but that is if we go all year long. What we have found is that, it truly is only going to cost $7,000 to $10,000 per course. And by course, it's really per section. So an example would be is if we only need American Sign Language for one section a day, it would be for the whole week, the cost would be $7,000 to $10,000 for the whole semester. If it's one section,
Right.
the entire week for the whole semester, that's $7,000 to $10,000.
So that's where the savings might come in, where if you only need that person, intermittently or just to cover one class a day,
Yes.
so you're not having 50 kids in a classroom without hiring another full-time teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, worst case scenario for us is we don't hire a body, an FTE, the whole year. So, I mean, once we get to that point, that would be a $60,000 to $65,000 cost with the additional costs coming in, for the paraprofessional. That's going to be in the class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mrs. Helliger?
I love this idea because I know my son personally has trying to get sign language at Hightower High School, so it's very personal. But I do think that he would need someone in the classroom to, just monitor and make sure that they're staying on track and those kinds of things, and making sure that they're engaging with the teacher appropriately. So, I mean, my recommendation wouldn't be that we would go without a paraprofessional of some sort with it not being in the classroom. So I would suggest that they have one in the classroom.
Yeah, the what?
There's not an FTE, though.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that. I mean, when I said
speak.
no FTE, I meant like a teacher the whole year. I mean, but as far as a para, there would be a para in there.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's what I was
Yeah, I
confused.
apologize for
Sorry.
that.
Okay. My misunderstanding.
No, it was mine. Sorry.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to 8C1A, review the proposed purchases exceeding $50,000 for our CTE instructional resources. All right. 8C2B, CTE Industry Certifications and Supporting Practice Materials. So I assume this is books and safety goggles and things of that sort? Is that what we're looking at with this? Or, yes, I was thinking of our supporting practice materials, but, okay. And then 8C1C, CTE Technology and Materials. All right. 8D1, review of proposed new positions for Malala Elementary School for the 2019-20 school year. What's so funny? I skipped over it. Yeah, Malala's easy. All right. 8D2, review the proposed adoption of budget amendment number 3 for 2018-19. You want to make just a quick comment about this?
Yeah, this is to cover the staffing that was approved in December, the special ed staffing and some other staffing that was approved in December.
Okay. Thank you, sir. 8D3, review the proposed interlocal agreement regarding participation in the Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative. All right. 8D4A, review the proposed reallocation of the budget, of the project budget associated with the installation of security cameras in Bond 2014 package BP01A. Can we get a quick comment about this?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So what we're doing here is that originally the way that these budgets were set up, they were set up by campus. And so the installation for every one of the campuses is already complete. And the good thing is that we came in under budget in all of those. But what we did have was that in the support areas, the original consultant's guidance was that we only allotted, it was 13, there was 9 cameras in 13 support buildings. And it ended up that it needed 326 cameras. And so we're moving this money back into the support area to be able to complete that installation, but there's no change to the overall budget, which was the $14,118,000. That's not being exceeded. We're not
Okay.
asking for any change in that.
Okay.
So if
thank
I
you.
may add one thing, the average 9 camera that the consultant, I guess, guesstimate was strictly for the ingress and egress area, doors, only covered doors. So that's the reason why they say it's on an average it's 9. And that's what they budgeted for us is about $200,000 for
Okay.
the 13 bootings.
Thank you for that explanation. Mr. Rice, excuse me. Oh, next one, excuse me, okay. 8D5A, review the proposed utilization of the construction manager at risk delivery method for the construction of the new high school 12, elementary school 53, and the rebuild of Lakeview Elementary School. Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Burdine. Mr. Perez, I was just wondering at what point we're going to get the guaranteed maximum price.
Yes, sir. We're working with our attorney, and by contract, we're going to be looking at getting that at 75%.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. James, do you have a question, comment?
Well, I guess and that kind of answered that was a question that I was, same kind of thing that I was going to ask, because last time we waited a really long time, so we didn't have really much of the benefit of the contract, right? So this time we're doing it earlier? And
Yes, ma'am, we are. And then in addition, between receiving the GMP at 75% and had them bidding everything and doing a reconciliation, we're going to look at any savings going into an owner's contingency that'll stay within the project.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to 8D5B, review of proposed service agreement with the job order contractor Brown and Root for the Hall Stadium repairs. Will the stadium lights, was this separate from, or stadium light repair separate from this?
Yeah, the stadium lights were at Mercer.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about that. This is at Hall Stadium. Thank you for that. All right, moving on to 8D5C, review the proposed construction service agreement with job order contractors Brown and Root for the construction and installation of all water heaters, boilers identified under the Bond 2018 Package 024. Mrs. James.
I wanted to just make a comment or ask a question about the last one at Hall Stadium. So that I think is a pretty major effort there to fix the foundation and some of the structure of the stadium. Is that going to be ready in time for the football season for next year?
Yes, ma'am, it's our intent to release them right after board approval, and we intend to have it ready for the beginning of the season.
Okay, but it won't be able to be used during the track season?
It will not be able to be used.
Okay, so it's going to be shut down for track season, but should be back for football season?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. No, thank you for that. Review the proposed construction, 8D5D, review the proposed construction service agreement with job order contractors J.R. Thomas Group for the construction, installation of all playgrounds, landscaping identified under the Bond 2018 Package 033. All right, moving on. 8D5E, review the proposed construction service agreement with job order contractors Alpha Building Corporation for the construction, installation of all fire alarms identified under the Bond 2018 Package 036, and for the construction, installation of fire sprinklers identified under Bond 2018 Package 030. All right. 8D5F. Review the proposed schematic design for a 10 classroom addition at Meadows Elementary School located in the Aliana community. We have a little presentation here.
Yes, sir, we have a quick presentation.
Okay.
Mr. Martinez with flute.
Sir.
Good evening. I'm sorry.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
I'll try to be quick for you guys. I usually talk kind of loud. That's why I was saying. Anyways, let's see here. Is this working? Is it not on? Okay, sorry. There we go. Here's our site plan. This is for your new elementary school 51, Malala. I'm going to have a tough time saying that one too. But your addition is right here. It's a 10 classroom, 2-story addition for the elementary school. The addition is actually located where it's always been planned to be located. This is a composite of your overall floor plan, and this is where the addition is. This is just the first floor, but both floors are virtually identical. You can see here's the floor plan, your first floor and your second floor, about just a little under 10,000 square feet for each floor. You got 5 classrooms, mechanical room, restrooms, your workroom, your instructional pull-out space, and a flexible learning space. And that's on both floors. And then there's a rendering of it. This is the back side where we adjusted the canopy for the bus loop on the back side of the school. Okay, if anybody has any questions.
On the previous slide, I'm sorry. On the previous slide, those two drawings there are just of the addition itself. There's no existing building there.
That is correct. The existing building comes down this way, so all we did was extend the classrooms up per the original plan and add the 5 classrooms. So that's it. Oop, let me go back. Yeah, right down the hallway. So if I go back to the overall here, you can see here, there's the hallway coming straight through. And then going out that door there, and this one comes down and goes straight out right there.
Can you point out the main corridor through the building there as you walk in on the, just below the first grade pod?
So right here is your main corridor. There's your main entrance, right up in here, and then your corridor that goes in to feed each of the houses and goes down here to feed this house down here.
And so the exit doors on the very end of the building on the addition there, is that where they are?
There's one here, and there's one here.
And then there's some that are closer between the library and the first grade area there too, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
There's some exits right here.
Okay, I was
I'm
just
sorry.
curious.
I can't see
It
that.
looks like a very long, maybe it's not that long, it's like a long corridor, so I was just curious where the exits were.
Yes, you actually have an exit.
What-
Hi.
Thank you.
Yes, you actually have an exit that's right outside of where that stairwell is, right from the library. And then we have some right here from the dining hall and extended day.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Next, we will 8D5G, review the proposed schematic design for the rebuild of Meadows Elementary School.
Yes, Gensler will be going through this quickly.
Yes, very quickly. But Meadows Elementary is a very exciting project for us, so I will try to be as quick as possible with that. It's exciting because we initiated the design process with the community and really in dialogue at a town hall meeting. And so from that meeting, words like community and collaboration were the most repeated, and you'll see really guided our design process. So in site, you'll see decisions such as creating a 2-story volume to really minimize the overall footprint, to maximize that precious green space, and preserve as many as possible of those beautiful existing trees, as well as amenities such as connecting back to the rest of the city parks and the softball fields. In the site plan, you'll also notice our dedicated, trying to create a safer access experience. So dedicated bus drop-off to the north, and then dedicated parent queuing along the south of the site. And then we've created more of a street presence and welcoming presence back towards the community off Pender Lane. So in plan, you see how those points of circulation really create 2 central axes that intersect in the building. So from north-south, those points of student access, which also creates a very important spine for the building that allows us to safely secure segments of the building and welcome the community to participate in those programs on the east. So the cafeteria, the gymnasium, as well as our extended learning and multi-purpose rooms. Running east-west, we have our main point of entry off Pender Lane, which connects our administrative suite and then ties the students back through the site and connects to our outdoor learning spaces.
Sir, could you show us in reference where Pender Lane is?
Yes.
So that's on the west side of the building. We can't see that dot.
Hey, Mike.
Or if you have one.
So
There we go.
Pender Lane is our primary community face on the west.
Okay.
Another gesture you see with the plans is that we've created that orientation so that our central library is located in the heart of the building. And that's something that was very important to the community, as well as nodding back to how their current school is configured, and really creating a central hub of learning at the core of the building. On the second floor, you'll notice a learning terrace that's dedicated for outdoor learning along the north. And then each one of these learning bars, essentially, are organized as pods, so that we've really tried to incorporate as much flexibility and spaces for collaboration within each grade level. In elevation, that first thing you'll see from Pender Lane is that west elevation. So you'll notice transparency is really focused at those moments of collaboration and shared spaces. So that'll be your library experience with a glass on the west facade, and then really creating a more intuitive point of entries along the east, north, and south. And from this orientation, we've also created dedicated light into each classroom. And so a few just visualizations of what that experience would be as you're approaching the building, that heart of the school, the central library, really being showcased in the center. Are there any questions?
Yes. Could you go back to the original floor plan that you showed? Okay, so am I looking at actual classrooms, or are those just, you know, are those big open spaces, or
Each
the blue blocks, is there actually real classrooms?
Each one of these are classrooms.
Okay, and they're closed off?
So we have first, second, correct. They are,
Okay.
each classroom is closed off, but has the ability to open to its
Okay.
adjacent classroom with a movable partition.
So no more open concept there, right? Good. Thank you.
Mrs. Tossian?
But do we have the ability, I know on some of our other campuses and our other new designs, because we have the instructional pull-out space and stuff like that, do we have the ability to move these walls?
Yes, and I
Did I miss
think
that?
that's highlighted a little in this axon. I encourage the questions because I am trying to go through all this as quick as possible. But what we've done is provided as much flexibility as possible. So the IPS would allow a movable partition
So
there
I saw that,
to connect
and
into
that's
that
what I was
space.
wondering. Those are the movable walls. It looked like it was.
There's one here, and then
Yeah.
each grade level would have, there's 4 classrooms, so 2 partitions. Between these 2 classrooms, you'd be able to open that up as well.
Okay, thank you.
And that's in addition to your 600 square foot collaboration area.
And this is a LEED certified school,
Correct.
and what do I have any other questions or comments? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Moving on to 8D5H. Review the proposed schematic design for 12 classroom addition at Neal Elementary School.
Okay, well, good evening. My name is Ron Bailey. Jennifer Quigley and Melissa Capel. We're all here from PBK. We're just going to take 45 minutes of your time. No, we know it's real. We know it's real quick out here. Okay, let's show the first slide. So this is a 12 classroom addition onto Neal Elementary. If you recall, this is located in Harvest Green, the planned development. And the original design for Neal allows for these classrooms to be added on, so they will not look like additions. They'll just look like they've always been there. And Jennifer, take us through these.
All right, so as you can see here in the yellow, these are the new additions. So at the end of each wing, we've added 2 additional classrooms for each grade level, which is the main driver for why there's 3 separate additions versus having 1, is so that the grade level pods can be able to still be together within the shared area and then around the flex space as well. So here's the first plan here. Like I said, this is the kindergarten wing, so we're adding 2 kindergarten classrooms at that area and slightly expanding the flex space in the middle. And then for all the other wings, the grade level classrooms, so this is the first grade wing, adding 2 additional first grade classrooms and expanding the flex space here as well. Same thing for the 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade on the 2nd floor. Here is the exterior rendering. So you can kind of see that we've grayed out the existing part, and we've, showcased the new additions, but basically everything will be matching the existing. So all the colors and finishes and everything will match the existing facades there. That's basically all I had. Really short.
If there's any questions.
I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mrs. Tossin, I'm sorry. We
So,
have
no,
one
it's
more
not for them. So I hate
Okay.
to go back, but I wanted to go back to the Malala edition because that was a question I had written down. Are they, okay. Because we are adding on one side, and one of the questions I had is, it's not dispersed evenly among the pods, the K1, 2, so, and this may not be a question for the architect, this may be a question for our guys, is how do we plan to redistribute our kiddos, or do we?
Well, it's similar to what we did on the 2014 bond when we did additions to Scanlon Oaks, to Oyster Creek. We're working with the principal. It's basically to accommodate a grade level per floor. So with the other ones, you didn't have to add, with specifically Neil, we did not have to add extra IPS rooms because we just came on to their existing infrastructure for that particular pod. For this, because we're adding a grade level, we're including new IPS spaces, new flex spaces, restroom facilities, teacher workrooms, so that way a whole grade level can be accommodated into that addition, one per floor.
Okay, so it just depends on the number of kids we have in each grade, which grade level will go in those pods.
I think it comes, well, actually, the location that we put it on, can we go to the overall floor
I
plan?
see the first grade. It's added to the first grade end of the wing and the fifth grade, I think.
Yes, and so within those pods, we actually have additional classrooms in there. That's one of the locations on the first floor is where we have some of the specialized classrooms. On the second floor, that's where we have some of the out classrooms. So we can work with the principal one of the ways that we accommodated the out classes is to make them uniform so that they would be able to have some flexibility to be utilized for different classroom functions, if it is a classroom or if we're going to use it for a STEM lab. So basically on both of these levels, you're able to shrink and flow to accommodate that classroom that will be serving in that addition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dixon. Now, moving on to 8D6A, review the proposed purchases exceeding $50,000 for the EJ Ward Incorporated fuel terminals and annual support maintenance. All right. 8D6B, Parks and Recreation Equipment and Field Lighting Products and Installation. All right, 8D6C, Emergency Call Boxes and Related Items. We good? Next, we have audience items, and I don't believe we have any this evening. Is that still true? No, we don't have any.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.